Hello. You know, I used to live out there, right about where that highway interchange is today. My name is Tolliver. Lawrence Tolliver. People called me the Major. The Indians, of course, had their own names for me. Little Crow, the grandson of the old Sioux chief who first sold this territory to the white man, called me No Sugar in the Mouth. I came up here in a keelboat before there was any of this. Rivers were the only freeways then. Whoever held them controlled the territory. This junction was the key to it all. I began as United States Indian agent for the entire northwestern frontier, stretching farther than any man could ever see, even from up there. President James Monroe appointed me himself in 1819.
Looking back, all this seems simple enough. Walls, tower, board, and stone. It's where all that, the great city you call Minneapolis and St. Paul, or even Minnesota itself, began.
Dimanche au soir à la veillée, nous irons voir nos compagnies. Elles vont nous dire, mais en entrant, que le monde a mangé le cœur content. Envoyons là-bas nos gens, envoyons là-bas.
As a young recruit from Virginia, I sat in Mr. Monroe's chair in Washington. Secretary of State he was then. Years before, in 1803, while he was still serving overseas, he signed the Louisiana Purchase in Paris. The size of America doubled overnight. 2 years later, the United States Army ordered a headstrong young supply officer, Lieutenant Zebulon Pike, to explore this new territory and obtain land from the Indians for military forts. And so he stopped here, at the junction of the Mississippi and the Minnesota rivers. We called it St. Peter's in my day. The Sioux called it Medota, meeting of waters. 100,000 acres for a song, as Pike himself put it. A song that included 60 gallons of whiskey. It took some doing to get their signatures, of course. The Sioux chiefs thought their word of honor should be enough.
Pike went home, and while America struggled to possess its new heartland, it was business as usual for the British fur traders who had arranged Pike's bargain. Even the War of 1812 failed to halt their influence over the Northwest and the Indians who lived here. In 1819, the American father acted directly.
Order.
Arms, push. Support, push. Hear it, push.
And good day, gentlemen.
Good day, Captain Leonard. We'll talk about that some other day, Major. Some other day. Right now, I have some unfinished business, and then a little celebrating to do.
It's a banner day for my good friend Colonel Snelling. Word just arrived that the fort his troops built board by board and stone upon stone has been renamed Fort Snelling in his honor.
And hut.
Too bad the fuss over that soldier-facing third court-martial couldn't wait. Some men aren't fit for the life out here.
The colonel's a hard man, but then he has to be. Keeping the peace and supporting my Indian agency is no easy task. This is all Indian land for hundreds of miles. He could use more good men just to keep out the white trespassers. He blames me, of course, for the fighting here between the Chippewa and the Sioux. Says if I wasn't such a good agent, the Chippewa would go to their own agency at Lake Superior and not come to the fort to mix with the Sioux. I took the opportunity, of course, to tell him that if he wanted a little privacy here, he could always build me a big new council house over at the agency.
Sir, I've been meaning to ask the Major just what the Major wanted me to do with all these goods. Lieutenant Gleason's men, they just dumped them here. Now Bailey's man comes hollering to me about taking the whole United States Army to court. Says the Major's out to ruin his trade.
An old and unhappy tune, Mr. Spaulding. And knowing how loud Mr. Bailey can sing, I'll soon hear complaints from his customers as well. Tell Bailey's man he can take it all with him. All except the whiskey, of course. The British traders are gone now, but the American Fur Company isn't any better. They know it's illegal to sell whiskey on Indian land, but they insist they cannot do business without it. I do what I can. Take away their licenses, impound their shipments. I encourage the Indians to take up farming. But with little money and no word from Washington for months at a time.
About time he got him. Some deserve work.
Let's run the shirker out of here.
You'll starve if you don't freeze first!
Chief Naziampa is here to inquire of his father, Major Tolliver, as to why their traders are being taken from them. Is the Major in the fort?
You got your new council house, Major.
Careful, William. Pennsylvania's a long way from here. 20 years ago, I resigned my military commission for this. I've seen fort commandants come and go, and I've survived 4 presidents. But I'm no longer a well man. Never make promises, I always told them. I always told the chiefs their American father would take care of them as well. Was it only 2 years ago we went to Washington for the last time? I was so sure they'd get fair value for their land. Now to see the traders get most of the treaty money and even point a gun at my own head.
The boat is here, sir. The frontier had finally caught up with the fort. Settlers began to outnumber Indians on the east bank of the Mississippi, and with each passing autumn, their majority grew. I felt I was leaving a fortress as doomed as the world it had been built to protect only 2 decades before.
Major, I meant to get over earlier to say goodbye, but we had to get rid of the last of those squatters.
Don't be silly now, darling. All you've done all week is play
Another
cards
bunch
and
of
sleep.
tourists
I
from
wish
back
I brought
east.
your mother along. You don't appreciate
Anyway,
it all.
we sent them and their cattle all the way down the river to Pig's Eye Landing this time. Ought to be the last we see of them.
Isn't this exciting, Richard? I feel like we're about to cross the moat of a castle on the Rhine.
Can we help you folks? Visiting from St. Louis, are you?
Oh, a week on that boat and I thought we'd been devoured by the wilderness. What an absolute pearl! Are you feeling well, sir? I hope you haven't been forced to cut short your visit.
Another 20 years and the frontier had moved beyond the junction of the 2 rivers. Newer forts sprang up to protect the western interests of an expanding America. Minnesota became the 32nd state, and the fort closed, passing into the hands of a former Fort Sutler who dreamed of selling lots for the city of Fort Snelling. Walls that had never been threatened in battle were now overrun by Mr. Franklin Steele's sheep.
Nelson. Save that for some of those Southern rebels.
Hey, mister, we've got a war to win, and if you don't hurry, it just might be over before you get there.
The outbreak of the Civil War saw the fort reopened as a training depot for the recruits of a young state eager to defend the honor of the Union. It was a role that continued as an older America found itself in battles more and more removed from its own borders. The fort, too, moved outside its old walls. When I came back to the fort in the first steamboat to reach these parts, I thought I'd seen everything. That was 1823.
The old fort was almost forgotten, I'm afraid, when the post expanded over here. Not much left of this fine avenue today. Colonel Zachary Taylor was a fort commandant in my day, of course, before he became a hero of the Mexican War. It took the presidency to kill off old Rough and Ready. Little Crow once flattered me that it might have been different if I had remained. He was killed after the Sioux uprising that occurred upriver from here in 1862. His people were imprisoned at the fort before being sent west onto reservations. Little Crow's war turned out to be only the beginning. After the Civil War, the fort became a staging area for the Western Indian campaigns in Dakota and Montana. Winter campaigns. Custer left from here, too, to join his cavalry troops, and word of his end at Little Bighorn came on the 4th of July, 1876. The new post expanded into a major U.S. Army supply depot in the 1880s when America no longer had any need for smaller forts with walls. It became the home of my old regiment, the 3rd Infantry. I was just a rough youth when my brothers and I enlisted in the War of 1812. Troops left here for Cuba in '98 and for the Philippines the following year. And then, of course, there was the First World War.
Over there, send the word over there, that the Yanks are coming, the drums coming everywhere, so prepare.
Soldiers have to come back from war, too, and the hospital here is a place where in 1918 and 19, the grim toll of European battles was counted and recounted.
We're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over there. I got a feeling you're fooling, I got a feeling you're having fun. I guess I go by what you are done, fooling with me.
Peacetime was another matter, and in the 1920s and 30s, polo matches and horse shows took over the drill fields.
You're laughing right off your sleeve, fooling with me. Life is worth living while you are giving moments of paradise.
Fort Snelling became known as the country club of the Army, and a trick horse that could jump through a ring of fire became a local celebrity.
World War II changed all that. Once again, the 3rd Infantry, or Old Guard, as General Winfield Scott called it, distinguished itself in foreign fields.
Praise the Lord, and pass the ammunition, and we'll all stay free.
And on October 14th, 1946, the flag was lowered for the last time, and the new Fort 2 was closed. When Minnesota celebrated its centennial in 1958,
Not much more than this round tower remained of the old fort, at least on the surface. An ambitious restoration program was launched. You can see the results. My name's Tolliver, Major Lawrence Tolliver. What's yours?
Brian. My name is Brian.
I must confess, my heart is still here somehow. We were the only white man's government then. It's only law from here to the Missouri River, as far as America dreamed of penetrating the northwestern frontier. Honorable men served here.
There were others. Visitors like the French astronomer Joseph Nicolet, a man of fine heart. His maps defined at last the waters we had all lived by. But I remember most his accomplished violin on the long winter evenings and his generous words to me. You have done your best, Major. Fearlessly, devotedly, nobly. The Indians are doomed. Save your reputation. We were here to protect the Indians, too, you see. Others saw it differently. I did my duty.